Hello and welcome back to the very beginning of the Spanish campaign, to November 10th, 2023. A really big day for me because it was the day I started posting seriously on this channel shortly before y'all started watching in huge numbers. To me, it means a lot that this many people enjoy watching this awesome game that I love and have loved for decades. So I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with me through the entire long campaign. Today, I just finished recording the end of the long campaign for Spain. Took 8 months, technically. Took a couple breaks in there for sure, because life got busy at times. But I've had a great time. This has been a hard campaign, for sure. Very hard difficulty for Spain is very different than any other faction, in my opinion. Maybe there are a couple that are harder, but it's been hard. It's been fun, but it's been hard. But it's crazy to go back and take a look at the save files, and that's what I want to do today. Starting at the very beginning, I want to march through all of the different save files and see how this campaign progressed, because the campaign map was doing funky things. I've never seen a campaign quite like this. With the way that the Julii developed, I was just so fascinated to take a look with Fog of War disabled and see what the heck was going on that led to the end game that we had. So let's take a look at the generals we started with, because I barely even remember at this point. In our 4 cities, we have Mataginis, Luco, our factionaire Caronius, and our faction leader Viriathus. Started the game with 3,000 denarii. So gross, so disgusting. And just so you remember what everything looked like at the time, the visibility for the start of the Spanish campaign is so horrible. Just that all of the mountains blocking your view. Even when you put up a watchtower, you can see like 2 feet. So that was a big thing that was difficult at the start of this campaign. Let's jump to the end of episode 1, see how much we got done in the first episode. So here we are in 270 BC at the start of the campaign. At the end of part 1, we were in 266 BC, and we had picked up Cordoba off the Carthaginians, so of course we were at war with them. And we were planning to pick up Numantia off the Gauls. So Viriathus is on his way up here with an army to pick up Numantia. And let's turn off Fog of War and see what was going on in the rest of the world. So not too surprising, the Julii went ahead and picked up Segesta. They were not doing much else. Brutii did what they were expected to do. They picked up Apollonia. Scipii were besieging Syracuse. None of this is very surprising. And of course, Ambon was on his way to start setting watchtowers around our massive pitch black empire. So after our first episode, we were at 266 BC. Let's go to the end of our second episode. We jumped to a crazy 253 BC. I don't know why we were firing through turns that quickly at the start of this campaign, but we picked up Numantia off the Gauls, and we started dealing with what would be the entire early and middle game struggle of this campaign, which was the Julii. For some reason, they decided instead of attacking the Gauls, they wanted to put all their troops on fleets and send them over to attack us at Osca. So we have Manius Julius here, Captain Secundus, and I don't know how we successfully held on to Osca. It looks like we have a lot of troops here, but look at the quality of these troops. Barbarian mercenaries, Spanish mercenaries, round shield cavalry. This was a scary moment of the campaign. This was when I started really realizing what we had signed up for. But you can see how badly this is impacting the Julii, that they're sending off their armies to go lose battles against the player. Because they still haven't picked up Mediolanum or Patavium. They haven't gone down and picked up Carolus. Meanwhile, I had no idea how well the Brutii were doing. At the end of part 2, the Brutii had Croton, Tarentum, Apollonia, Salona, Thermon, Thessalonica, and Byzantium, and they were even besieging Bylazora. In the first 2 parts, they were this advanced. That's crazy to me. I had no idea that was going on. I'm excited to see how they fumbled this lead, because by far they are the most advanced and powerful faction in the game at the end of part 2. In Sicily, the Scipii took Syracuse and are besieging Lilybaeum, so they're doing well. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing about as well as I'm doing at this point. Let's take a look at the end of part 3. So part 2, we end at 253 BC. And at the end of part 3, we are at 243 BC. So 20 turns again, another crazy part. We were moving so fast at the start of this game. But I think it's mostly because we didn't have that much we could do. We were laying watchtowers. You can see watchtower here, 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 here. A lot of these watchtowers are on roads, which I later learned thanks to a commenter, is a really bad idea because a lot of rebels like to hang out on watchtowers because they want to block your watchtower. They want to do something instead of just standing around. So they end up blocking your trade a lot. So I stopped doing that at some point for the most part. So, but yeah, you can see a lot of these original watchtowers are just chilling out on roads because that's where my general happened to be when I dropped them. So you can see we've done a good amount of work on our visibility at this point. We can see almost all of Spain, which I was very proud of and was actually very helpful in the early game because I didn't know how aggressive the rebels were going to be. I hadn't played that many very hard campaigns up to this point. So I was fully expecting to be losing settlements left, right, and center to rebels, which is why I put up so many watchtowers. So that's what I was really focusing on at this point in the campaign. Let's see what everyone else was focusing on. So the Julii, you can see what they're interested in. All of their armies are hanging out on the coast, ready to come attack us. So here we have Admiral Appius with a nearly full stack army ready to come attack us. We have another army, nearly full stack, actually a full stack army here, and reinforcements ready to load onto ships to come over to attack us. And they still have not taken Mediolanium or Patavium. So the Julii, I've never seen them have such a horrible start to a campaign just based on them wanting to aggro onto the player character. And I forgot about this, but I think a big reason for why they were so aggro on attacking me is that for some reason they allied with the Gauls in the early game, which is really not what you're supposed to do as the Julii. But I think, yeah, that's why they were just sending off their armies on fleets. It was an interesting idea if it was not against me, because I have a brain and so I can, sink fleets. But yeah, I had picked up Palma at this point, which was very important for staging this armada so I could see any incoming fleets. I was starting to put out my kind of scouting fleets, these little weak fleets, to be able to spot incoming armies. And we had prepared Luco to march north to try and start fighting back against the Gauls, pick up Narbomardius. I really should have probably gone down and picked up Tingi, but I didn't realize how valuable Tingi would be for a trading partner. So that might have been a lot easier to just take Tingi, take Cirta, and just start fighting back against the Carthaginians instead of fighting north against the Gauls. I forgot how worthless a lot of these settlements are, but you live, you learn. I wasn't that good at the game at this point, so not a big deal. But the Carthaginians were doing really well. They took all of North Africa, knocked the Numidians out of the game. The Scipii were also doing well. They had consolidated Sicily, taken Carolus. So that's a good start for the Scipii as well. And look at the Brutii. This is crazy. They're besieging Larissa, Athens. They've taken Thermon, Apollonia, Salona. They've taken Segestica. They actually did not manage to take Bilazora at this point. I don't know why that happened. Maybe they lost their battle against the Macedonians and that allowed the Thracians to swoop in. But that was, I guess, maybe this was a roadblock. We'll see in the next episode how they do against the Thracians. But yeah, they totally whooped the Macedonians. I mean, they're down to one settlement that's besieged. The Greeks are down to 2 settlements that are besieged and 5 settlements that are not besieged. But yeah, not doing very well, especially against the Brutii. Brutii had a great start to this campaign. Unsurprisingly, at this point, the Seleucids are down to 1 settlement. Hatra is besieged by the Egyptians. So by 243 BC, the Seleucids were basically out of the game. Not too surprising. That happens most of the time. End of part 3, we were at 243 BC. Let's go to part 4, the end of part 4, and see how much we had progressed. 235 BC, and I remember I was so proud of this. I tried so hard to get Xantia Bilbilis with his full stack army of bull warriors and long shields onto the shores of Arretium, just so I could name this episode Apple of My Julii. I was so proud of that. But Xantia Bilbilis here to strike back against the Julii, and you can't really see the last few steps of what happened here and why they were so weak, but you can see they have almost no armies left, because what happened between part 3 and 4 is they put a bunch of their armies on fleets and my armada sunk all of them. So my armada was doing great things. It was getting a little bit battered at this point. We were getting counterattacked somewhat by the Carthaginians, who were trying to take Palma back, but we'd landed a full stack, really strong army on the shores of Arretium. And at this point, the Julii with 3 settlements at this point in the game in 235 BC had really no hope of winning. No progress from the Scipii at this point. They are still on Carolus, Sicily, and their starting settlement. So this sometimes happens to Scipii. If they don't get a really good start, it usually happens to them. If they don't get a great start against the Carthaginians, they don't really have anywhere to go because they can't expand into Brutii territory or up into Gaul, especially since at this point they're still allied with the Gauls. I don't know how that happened, but the Julii being allied with the Gauls prevents anyone from attacking them. So crazy that is actually what happened in this campaign, that the Julii never took any settlement except for Segesta. I don't think they ever did. We're going to find out in a few minutes, but I don't think they did. Let's check on the Brutii. Of course, at this point, they've taken all of Greece, all of Macedonia, except for little old Sparta, which looks like one turn away from being taken. So yeah, Sparta fell and all of Greece is gone. Bylazor is gone, so the Macedonians were eliminated in part 4. Yeah, at this point, the Brutii clearly the strongest faction in the game. Maybe the Egyptians. They're taking a lot of these settlements. They're doing really well at this point. They gobbled up most of the Seleucid Empire. But, I don't know. I still think the Brutii had an advantage because the thing with the Egyptians is they have really strong big settlements as their starting settlements. But a lot of these settlements that they pick up a little later, like Damascus, Bostra, Petra, they're pretty bad settlements. They're so tiny. Hatra, yeah, none of these are very good settlements. So at this point, definitely the Brutii are winning this campaign. Also, we can see why later in the campaign, the Gauls have such tiny populations in all their settlements, because they're getting attacked actively by the Britons, who somehow skipped Alesia, skipped Trier, and went straight down to Lugdunum. They actually picked this up in part 3, I believe. But that's why the Gauls used up all their population, just trying to fight back, take Lugdunum, and win against the Britannians. But yeah, this part 4, I didn't really do much. I had still my faction leader at this point, Luco, and Lucan, his faction heir, ready to march north and attack Narbonadius, but I was debating with myself how I was going to defend Palma here, and just growing very conservatively. 235 BC, and I still am trapped in Spain. So that's a big part of why the start of this campaign was so hard for me. I probably should have gotten out and conquered North Africa, but yeah, I was just kind of stuck in Spain. I didn't really know what to do at this point. I didn't realize how weak the Gauls were either. If I had known, I probably would have just pushed more aggressively north and taken out the Gauls fairly easily. You can see how weak they are at this point. Basically no full stack armies left. But let's hop to the end of part 5, and we can see how much we progressed from part 4. So we're at 235 BC in part 4. End of part 5, we've knocked the Julii out of the game. We've taken a Redium and a Riminum, and that finished off the Julii. So in about 5 hours, we had knocked the Julii out of the game as Spain. That's pretty crazy. But that's about all we had done. We were focusing our energy on taking Italy. That's another reason why we weren't really pushing into Gaul that much. We wanted to knock the Romans out in the early game. But yeah, we took a Redium, we took a Riminum, and we were pretty battered at this point. We couldn't really retrain our Bull Warriors until we had our Sacred Circle of Isis level 3 in both of these settlements, which we were pretty far away from. So we were just trying to hold on to these settlements. Still the Scipii, no progress, even though down in 233 BC, still no progress. Brutii, they did successfully take all of Greece, but this is where they kind of stalled out. They didn't venture out and start taking Turkey, and they didn't really push aggressively north into Thrace either. So at this point, they've kind of stalled, no real progress. We still have not done anything about Narbonadius. Luco is still hanging out at Osca, and we're still trying to fight for Palma against the Carthaginians. So 233 BC in part 5, let's go to the end of part 6. Part 6, we've taken Rome off of SPQR. It's 229 BC, so it's been 8 turns. And the Gauls have taken Segesta, so they were actually doing fairly well at this point. Still have not taken Lugdunum off of the Britons, but they're trying to. They're besieging it now. But we took Rome, knocked out a second Roman faction. Scipii were getting a little bit of headway against the Carthaginians. They took Thapsus. And at this point, the Brutii are still allied with the Gauls. I don't think they ever ended up at war with the Gauls in this campaign. I wonder if they did. We'll check. But yeah, I have no allies, of course. Still no progress in southern France. Still fighting over Palma. Look at all these ships. I think at this point, I was just trying to block the fleet from dropping off troops here, and they ended up still being able to drop off these elephants. That's what I was worried about. And I don't know what exactly the strategy was with all these boats. I was just trying stuff out at this point. But still no progress from the Brutii. Look how well Pontus was doing in this game. And the Egyptians, finally pushing back against Parthia, picking up Seleucia. It's crazy how quickly the campaign map just got split up among a couple huge factions. Egypt, Pontus, Brutii, Carthage, me, and Gaul. And that's about it. So that is part 6. Let's jump to part 7. So we're in 229 BC in part 6. So after part 7, so this puts us in 226 BC. And very little progress here. We've gone down, we've picked up Capua. So Scipii are knocked off of Italy. But other than that, we still have not taken Segesta. We still have not taken Mediolanum or Patavium. The Brutii have not made any progress against the Thracians. Pontus has consolidated all of Asia Minor, but no real progress in part 7. Even though it was an hour and 41 minutes, almost nothing changed on the campaign map. Still fighting off this Carthaginian army, I think I was hesitating fighting them because I had all of these naked fanatics and I didn't know if they would be able to kill elephants. I think that's what was going on here. For like an hour and 40 minutes, I was trying to figure out, how do I kill this army of elephants? I ended up, I think, just fighting them in the field and they all broke and we ran them down with cavalry. But I was so scared of the elephants because I just hadn't fought any in a while. So yeah, this was the Siege of Capua, part 7, 226 BC. Things are really slowing down now at this point. Let's go to the end of part 8. So 226 BC, part 7. At the end of part 8, we were at 224 BC. So just 4 turns, 2 years. Things are really slowing down. No progress. In Italy, we haven't picked up Segesta. Scipii have not made any progress against the Carthaginians. We did manage to pick up Tingi, though, and at that point, I realized how important Tingi was. We were making 23.79 per turn in trade from Tingi. I was kicking myself for not having done this earlier, but definitely worth doing. If you're ever playing as Spain, pick up Tingi for this trading partner right here. Cordoba and Tingi make a huge amount of money trading between those two settlements. And it's crazy how quickly the world just stalemates. Nothing really happening here. Looks like Pontus lost a settlement, Halicarnassus to maybe a rebellion, but nothing's changing. Greeks still have Kydonia and Rhodes. No change in Brutii, no change in Britain's ownership of Lugdunum. They didn't take Alesia ever, but Britain's kind of getting pushed back now. Samarobrava is under siege, so they're not doing too well. They never picked up Tara. That's why at the end of the long campaign, Tara is just hanging out. They never bothered to go pick it up. I'm not really sure why. That's the end of part 8, 224 BC. Let's go to part 9. 221 BC, part 9. This is where a lot of stuff happened. Kerbassi of Toledum joined our empire at the age of 26. He would end up being Kerbassi the Conqueror, who from southern Italy would end up taking Dewa and finishing off the Britannians after taking all of Gaul single-handedly, literally single-handedly by himself. I think we also got Norbert around here. Do we have Norbert yet? Yep, here's Norbert in Tingi. Those two would reunite somewhere in France and end up taking like 15 regions together. So the start of a legend there. We also completed the entirety of Italy for the most part. Not including Segesta, not including Mediolanum or Patavium, but I called this the boot this episode because I finally owned the boot. Maybe not like, not hip high, but like thigh high, right? Still no progress from the Brutii at this point, no progress from the Scipii at this point, no real changes in the empires of anyone around the world, except Pontus got Halicarnassus back, and I knocked the Brutii off of Italy, which was a huge moment for me because I had a strong navy. I knew that. At this point, they weren't really here. We had a lot of enemy ships to deal with, but having control of this entire peninsula gave me a lot of power because I could keep enemy armies away from my land. I could kind of stop stalking these cities so heavily, take advantage of the huge populations in these huge cities, and have a lot more control over my empire. So part 9, 221 BC. Let's hop to part 10, 219 BC. Just 2 years later. And this episode was all about Norbert the Elephant marching his way up from Tingi through Spain and on his way up to unite with, eventually, Kerbasi, who is right up here, fighting. I think he's planning to take on the Gauls in northern Italy. I forgot he did that. But they don't even realize they're destined to be together. At this point, I was trying to get Captain Benat, the original captain of Norbert the Elephant, to get a promotion in just a man of the hour, one of these battles. But at this point, let's see, do we get any progress? We took Carolus this turn. We didn't make any progress really against the Gauls other than getting together a huge long shield cavalry army. It was at this point that I started getting advice from people in the comments as people started really seeing these videos around this part. And people told me just get a bunch of long shield cavalry and just roll through the entire campaign map. Don't worry too much about the infantry. Just go for cavalry. So that's what I did. It's really disappointing to see how much the Brutii stalled out here. I mean, look how many armies they have. Huge army here, 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 here. Big army there, big army there. Huge armies here. They could have easily taken out the Thracians. And they were at war with Thrace, so I really have no idea why they didn't just try. Maybe they were losing bridge battles against the Thracians. I'm not really sure. But for some reason, they just stalled out. They weren't even picking up Kydonia. Still no change of Britons holding on to Lugdunum. So that was part 10. Let's go to part 11. So we're in 219 BC in part 10. End of part 11. Just 218 BC. And this was a momentous time in our empire. This episode was titled A Tale of Two Gergoris. So, yeah, let's go to our family tree, see our glorious Gergori, age 25 faction heir. Gergori the Conqueror, age 38. Let's find Gergori. What was he up to? So Gergori the Conqueror at this point, our faction leader already, age 38. Oh my gosh, look at how good he was when he was young. He was so good. Before he got a little crazy and I gave away all his retinue in his older age. In 218 BC, he was on this fleet ready to attack the Scipii at Messana. And Gergori II, our faction heir at this point, had already taken Lilybaeum. Very productive couple of turns here, fighting back against the Scipii, fighting back against the Brutii. And I mean, there's a lot going on. Lots of little fleets all around Croton and Tarentum. So we were definitely being attacked on all sides here. But we were slowly winning against the Scipii. And Kerbasi of Toledum, before he was a conqueror. He's taken Segesta at this point. Has his eyes set on Mediolanium and Patavium, but he first has to beat Segoax and Captain Catoignus. So 218 BC in part 11. Let's go to part 12. 217 BC winter. Crazy. Kerbasi, his big thing this couple of turns, he went up to Mediolanium, took that off the Gauls, defeated the armies that were here. Here he defeated Captain Catoignus and got a famous battle in 218 BC. Gergori the Conqueror picked up Messana from the Scipii, and Gergori, Zigor, Denor of Segabriga, and Gergori II and Palban, all of them came together to take Syracuse, so we besieged that. And still no progress from the Brutii against the Thracians. Whatever they were doing to hold on to these settlements, I want to learn, because they were defending valiantly. 217 BC, part 12. Let's go to the end of part 13. 213 BC. At this point, Kerbasi has picked up Patavium, and he started marching over to reunite with Norbert the Elephant to begin fighting back against the Gauls. So we've knocked them out of Italy. Massilia is cornered here. And part 13 was the Scipii's demise. We took Syracuse off the Scipii. We went down and picked up Thapsus to knock them out of the game once and for all, and started really focusing our attention on the Carthaginians here as well. So at this point, we've knocked out the Julii, SPQR, and the Scipii. We can turn our attention to the Gauls, to the Brutii, to the Carthaginians. Those were our three main focuses in part 13, in 213 BC. Now, let's go to part 14. Part 14 in 211 BC. This is when things really speed up. We pick up Massilia, Narbomardius, and Lemanum in just one part, thanks to Kerbasi the Conqueror and Norbert the Elephant combined at last, and he's finally a conqueror. And conqueror is a very apt epitaph for Kerbasi. He did a lot of conquering in his life. This army of Longshield Cavalry and Norbert went on to conquer all all of France and all of the United Kingdom. Before it was ever a United Kingdom, it was united under the kingdom of Gergory and Gergory. At this point, we also picked up Carthage, we picked up Leptis Magna, things really started speeding up here, so Carthaginians are down to just 3 settlements. And at this point, we also picked up Apollonia off of the Brutii, finally actually striking back against them on their own turf of Greece. Megarovicus of Brigantium started his attack against overwhelming odds. In hindsight, crazy that I just sent one army in here to just start taking whatever he could take. Also, the Brutii finally dealt some decisive blows against the Thracians. Took out Campus Getae, Porlissum, Campus Iazyges, left them with just Loetius. And what is this? Vicus Venerae. You can see down here the Egyptians are starting to push in against Pontus slightly. They picked up Tarsus. And the number of factions that are realistically in this game are shrinking. The Gauls are down to 2 settlements. Thrace is down to 2 settlements. Parthia is down to 1 settlement. Carthage is down to 3 settlements. So a lot of factions starting to get knocked out of the campaign at this point. So that was part 14 to 11 BC. Let's go to the end of part 15. Another eventful episode. Part 15 is where we went up and finally saw the English Channel for the first time, picked up Conde Redonum with Kerbassi, and look at what I was bringing to these battles. Basically nothing at this point. Before we got a reinforcing army in, we were just going with what we had and taking as many settlements as we could, down to the last settlement of the Gauls at Lessia. About to finish them off. Still have not picked up Lugdunum. Still they have not picked up Tara. So I didn't realize how little things changed after the first couple of parts of this series. The Egyptians are slowly pushing in a little bit over here. They picked up Sardis. Thrace is still hanging on just barely. No real changes on this front by the Brutii. This was also the point when I started my Dacia campaign. So I had already done this much. I was up to 29 regions controlled by the time I started my Dacia campaign. But with the end of part 15, we're getting dangerously close to where we are today. I'm gonna summarize from my own memory what we did after this point, but I fear if I continue going through these saves past part 15, I'm gonna start spoiling things for myself later down the line. So I think I'm gonna make another recap in another 5 or 10, 15 parts, showing everything that happened from part 15 to part 30 with Fog of War removed. But I think with things slowing down as much as they are, I don't want to spoil the progression of Pontus, Egypt. I don't want to know exactly where the Brutii end and where the Scythians begin. So I'm going to end it here. But hopefully this was interesting for you. It was definitely interesting for me to see what the heck was actually going on with the Julii. If you want to see another one of these after, I don't know, another 10 parts or so where I'll go from 15 to 30, let me know if you want to see that. But that's all I feel comfortable seeing at this point. I don't want to see anything else with Fog of War disabled past part 15 because I don't want any spoilers. But I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought of this, of the campaign. Thank you so much for watching with me. I'm going to continue that long campaign, of course. Not going to give up on it. We're going to complete the world conquest. But yeah, I'm just feeling incredibly grateful. I love all the really nice comments people leave. I appreciate that y'all love this game as much as I do. So thank you so much for watching. As always, hope y'all have a wonderful, marvelous, great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.